Well, hello again, friends. Markus D one more time. I thought I would just take a moment and get right into that topic that I mentioned at the end of the last video of arrowheads and brains because it was fresh on my mind. And I've done this talk many, many times by memory also. And it's what I like to call Markus D's 4Ps, okay, the 4P factors. And they're really not mine. They're every well-versed scientist knows about these. But I do get to say I'm kind of the first one that kind of put them together in this little package with the 4P things. So for whatever it's worth, I like to call them the 4Ps. And it helps me remember them. I like keeping things simple. But what I want to do in this one, folks, is I want to talk to you about how order arises, how matter can be organized. How is it organized into complex structures, be they living or non-living systems, which we have everywhere in this world? They have to be accounted for. How did they get here? All right. And there are conditions that are required that and that's what these 4P factors really are. When I was in school, I was taught that all we really needed to get organized matter was energy, and we got energy from the sun. And that's a half truth, because energy is important, but it's only one of the four factors. And the reason why this is important too is because there is a universal law that's in effect in this world. And here again, this is going to bear out what I was mentioning in the previous video, that we all, whether we realize it or not, are intuitively scientists. Whether you like science or not, we all know basically the way this world works, all right? We may not have the scientific terms or the formulae, or however they say it, but anyway, but we know that, hey, the world works a certain way, and that's what I want to mention to you right now. There's a universal scientific law. It's one of the best proved laws of science that is simply called the law of decay. There's a couple of fancy terms for it. One is the law of entropy. It's also called the second law of thermodynamics, but let's not worry about those terms. Let's just call it the law of decay, because that's exactly what it is. And we're all very, very aware of this, that everything left to itself wears out, runs down, decays, disintegrates, dies. Our own bodies, our homes, our automobiles, our technology, whatever it may be, it takes a lot of work to maintain it. And even if we do maintain it, it ultimately wears out. And if we don't maintain it, it wears out very, very rapidly. There's this universal law. All right. What's interesting about that is it's kind of another topic, but it kind of ties into what the scripture calls the curse. All right, that this is the scientific validation of that, if I can put it that way. But let's not go down that trail right now. But it's something interesting to talk about. But we have this law of decay where everything wears out, everything runs down, everything falls apart. All right. And yet we can look around and we say, well, we have living systems, we have animals, we have trees, we have people, we have non-living systems. I'm speaking to you on a phone. I've got a laptop sitting here. I've got lamps. I'm at a desk. All right. We've got automobiles, things that are highly organized matter. How do they get here? All right. Again, these are things that any thinking person would probably want to ask questions about, because they all deal with the essence of who we are and our origins and how we got here. Now, so what is required in order to accumulate or assemble structure and order out of matter are these 4P factors, these four conditions. The first one is indeed energy, all right? And so that's why we call the first one power, because again, we need some kind of energy source to begin this buildup of matter, whatever it is, all right? The second thing we need is we need a process. We need some way of harnessing that power. It can't be just raw power. There's got to be some way we take that power and we begin to focus it in a specific way. And then, and again, these are not that complicated. The third thing we need parts, right? And we need specific parts. I mean, we wouldn't use the same parts to build a lamp that we would to, say, build a smartphone now. I was going to say a cell phone, but a phone. We need specific energy, we need a specific process, and we need specific parts. They can't just be any kind of energy, any kind of parts, obviously, all right? But the most significant of those factors is the last one, because that last P factor is plans, a blueprint, directions, instructions, guidelines, all right? The how to do it. That is really, we could flip them, okay? That's the starting point, are the plans. Because the plans then take a specific kind of power, a specific process, employ a specific process to harness that power, to make specific parts, and then assemble them in order, all right? And that blueprint is also been called in our modern information age exactly that, information. And we know information is not random. Information is highly organized, all right? It's a code, as I said, it's a blueprint. And what we also know now is that information ultimately only comes from intelligence. That's what information is. Otherwise, it's just random noise. What makes information information is when you have a code that makes sense. It can be understood. And that only comes from intelligence. And ultimately, intelligence only comes from a mind. All right? So what's interesting is everywhere we look, if you think about it now, all four of those factors have to be in place. They had to be in place to make the arrowhead we talked about just a few moments ago. This arrowhead started in the mind of somebody, and then they figured out how to take the energy in their body and then take a raw material, a rock, and then take some kind of a process to carve this out according to that plan. They had to do all of this according to that plan. And they have to do the same thing for the phone that's here and any other, the automobile, exact same thing. Now, Mark, what about living systems? How does it work there? The exact same conditions, those same 4 P factors are required. It's the only way to temporarily overcome this law of decay, which ultimately wins out anyway. Temporarily overcome it. And here's, folks, here is perhaps, I talked about, the human brain being called the most complex organization of matter in the entire known universe. Well, there is something within every living system, all right? It's actually contained in every single cell in the human brain, every single cell in our body. Every single cell in any living cell, whether it's one cell or a multi-celled creature, it's something called the DNA, which you're all familiar with. I know that, okay? It has been called the most densely packed information storage mechanism in the entire known universe. We thought we had described it, the chemical letters in there, but now they're starting to understand that even the structure of the DNA has significance. It's all important. It's all relevant. It all conveys information necessary for living systems to exist. It has been called an artifact of mind because it's a code. And that code had to come from a mind, ultimately. And let me just say this, an extremely, extremely intelligent mind, beyond the understanding of man, to put all these, I was already describing the complexity of the human system, the human, the body, all the different cells, all those different structures, and to integrate it, because that's the same thing that had to happen. There had to be parts. There had to be a process to put all this together. And there had to be the power and the process and the plans. But again, flipping it, the starting point was an incredibly complex information storage medium. And so really what we see in the created universe, all right, is the evidence, folks, of an unseen mind. We see it everywhere. The principles that you and I have to use to create non-living systems, and even now with all this amazing advancement that I'm hearing about, where they're integrating biomechanical things and doing all these amazing things, we have to understand that those 4 same conditions are required. And not only that, highly intelligent people are doing that. Those systems don't pop into existence by themselves. Computers don't pop into existence by themselves. Living systems don't either, because they all require a code. No code, no system. All right? They've got to have the resources and the power available. Yes, indeed, no question. But they've got to have that code to start it all off. All right? And so what it is, again, is it is, folks, it's everywhere we look, there is seen evidence of an unseen mind. That's what they're saying, that the DNA code is an artifact of mind, the greatest mind that we're capable of. And even though we may not be able to wrap our brain, well, how can there be an unseen mind except God has revealed the fact that I'm a spirit? He's a different order of being. And when you go back and listen to the video I did on the atoms, okay, all this physical stuff that we're seeing is all made up of these incredible little structures that are basically a physical manifestation of unseen power, an unseen order, an unseen structure, an unseen mind. And so that's really, that's what's going on here. And that's why this created realm really does all point to the fact that there is a master designer, a master creator. So, folks, these are amazing things to think about. They're things that revolutionize my mind, and that's kind of why I want to share some of these things through this Great Questions group outreach for those of you that are interested in this, because we all ought to be. The great questions of existence are important for all of us to think about, because all roads lead to one place. And I've shared that too in that 7-part video series that I just finished. So anyway, some more great things to think about, more great videos coming, not because of me, but just because this information is so compelling, and it'll revolutionize the way we see ourselves and we see our purpose here, and it'll give us hope and give us a hope for the future and a purpose in the here and now. And it's completely revolutionized the way I see things and opened my eyes to them. And so again, just want to be passing them on to those of you that are interested in this stuff. So in the meantime, I'm wishing you all a wonder-filled day, and Markus D signing off until our next chat. Okay? Take care, folks. Bye-bye.